Hello and welcome to the Screen Podcast, bringing you insight and analysis of the global film industry, brought to you by Screen International and ScreenDaily.com. I'm Wendy Mitchell, a contributing editor at Screen. I can assure you we are all very busy here at Screen because, as many of you know, the Cannes Film Festival starts in less than a week. It is probably the most important event in the international film calendar, and in recognition of that, I'm excited to tell you that we are going to be doing daily podcast episodes in Cannes this year. So do stay tuned for those. We'll kick those off on May 12th, which is the first day of the festival and the Marché. For today's episode, we have Screen's editor-in-chief, Matt Mueller, talking to one of the absolute queens of Cannes, Fionnuala Jamison, who is managing director of Mk2, or Mk2’s, as I start to reel out my rusty French. They are, of course, the booming French-headquartered production, financing, and sales company. They have one of the best track records. This year, they have 8 films across the festival and its parallel sections. That includes 5 in competition. 5 films in competition from Mk2. This really is a company at the top of their game. So Matt is talking to Fionnuala about this year's crop of films, as well as some of their really hot forthcoming projects like Todd Haynes' De Noche and Justine Trier's Fonda, and also gets her thoughts on the general state of the market right now. We wanted to drop this episode this week so you can listen to it before Cannes Madness fully starts. Maybe you should even download it to listen to on your train or your plane to the south of France. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to Matt to get us started with Fionnuala.
Well, thank you, Wendy, and hello, Fionnuala. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Screen Podcast. I'm sure things are absolutely insane this close to Cannes, so we're delighted that you're taking the time to have a chat on the Screen Podcast, talk about your slate coming up, previous films. I think one thing that really stands out is that last year was just such a phenomenal Cannes for Mk2. I mean, you had 6 films in competition. Nearly all of them won big prizes. It was just an accident. Got the Palme d'Or. Secret Agent got Best Director and Actor. Sound of Falling got the Jury Prize. Sentimental Value got the Grand Prize. Little Sister Best Actress. Do you come into this year thinking, how do we top?
Thanks for having me, first of all, Matt. It's great to be here. And absolutely. Yeah. Last year was, so completely crazy. You go, how can you possibly, do that again? And it's about the films and the strength of the films. And you just try to get on the ones that you're the most passionate about and the directors that you're most passionate about and try to shepherd those in the best possible way.
And, we look at this year's slate, and again, you have 5 films in the competition. You have, Minotaur, you have The Birthday Party, you have Gentle Monster, you have Nagi Notes, and you have The Man I Love, all of those from super acclaimed international auteurs. It's the return of Andrei Zvyagintsev, who we haven't seen for a few years with his project Minotaur, but really exciting projects again. So maybe you could talk a little bit about this slate for this year and how it came together, and then what the kind of the sort of circumstances were for these films to be selected in Cannes. I mean, how early did you know, for instance, that a lot of these were going to be playing in Cannes this year?
Well, yeah, like Andrei Zvyagintsev is someone that we've wanted to work with for a long time, and had the opportunity to start discussing a few years ago. He's been living in France for the last number of years, and this shot last year, and he's been in competition with pretty much all of his films and won a few prizes in competition in Cannes. So it's one of those that we had hopes that he could be there, and so it's great to see how that one's turned out. Gentle Monster is the second time we're working with Mary Kreutzer, who did Corsage, which was In a Certain Regard and won Best Actress there a few years ago. This one's particularly exciting because it's the first film we're working on with our fund, IPR. So they were a co-investor with us alongside in this film. So it's great to get off to a start with one of those, the first film out of the gate, finished with this with IPR, it being a competition in Cannes, is excellent. And then working with Murray again, complete joy. Yeah, Les Muses as well, someone we've been wanting to work with for a while. The Birthday Party. She's been in Cannes before. Um, I think it's exciting for the industry to see her in competition now. I think she's one of those that people thought she could be there soon, one day, and it's great that the opportunity to be this year and now with us. And yeah, Ira Sachs, The Man I Love. This we came on about a month ago. They sent it to us. We saw it finished. We all absolutely fell completely in love, and yeah, we were able to be the lucky ones to be selling this film internationally. And then, yes, Koji Fukada. Koji Fukada, Nagi Notes, is our fifth film in competition. We've worked with him quite a few times. I think it's our fourth. His first film that we did was in Certain Regards. He had a film in competition in Venice called Love Life. A Love on Trial last year in Cannes. And yeah, this is incredible to see this kind of step up in this kind of selection for the film. I mean, it's an excellent, perfect, beautiful film. And to be the third Japanese director in competition as well, I think is a bit of a feat in itself as well, and just shows how strong the films are from that region this year.
Absolutely. It's a phenomenal year for Japan, isn't it? I mean, they're the marché country of honor. So, it's great to have three really strong Japanese films, in the competition and then throughout the rest of the section as well. The Man I Love, that's an interesting situation. How common is it that you would come on board a film that close to, to the selection? It's interesting. And, obviously, had you worked with Ira before on other projects, or what was the scenario there for boarding?
We'd been in touch. We'd never had the opportunity to work with him, though we'd wanted to, and we'd sort of been discussing since last year, and they didn't need a partner until finished film. So we got to see it in that way, finished. But we're always looking for finished films to come on, to come on board prior to Cannes, or sometimes some could already be selected when we come on. Sometimes we do the submissions alongside the filmmakers and the teams who are already on board. So yeah, no, we're always looking. I mean, Sound of Falling is something that we saw finished last year as well, and came on board prior to Cannes, as opposed to on script, which is generally for the most films the stage at which we come on. But it just depends on the needs of the films in terms of having international early or not.
And being that close to the festival, it still gives you enough time to do do your prep work and whatever you need to do to get the project kind of, ready.
Yeah, for marketing is a little bit tighter. We don't have, we're not ahead of that on the shoot and making sure that, marketing is getting what they need when the film is shooting. But so it's a tiny bit tighter in that way, but it's plenty of time to turn things around when you're ready.
You got some, we don't want to forget your other projects as well. I mean, obviously competition is the big section, but of course you have your project in Uncertain Regard, Benny Imana. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yes, Ben Imana. La Gradiva in Critics Week, and Madame, which was just recently announced as a special screening. So, you've got titles across other sections and in the parallel section Critics Weeks as well. So a big slate for this year.
Yeah, Benimana is a film that we saw finished as well. I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago. We'd heard rumblings about something, and yeah, we reached out to them and got in touch and saw the film and absolutely loved it and were blown away. It's really unique and an incredibly powerful story, and a film from this region, truly from this country, is not really something we've sort of seen before in Cannes, and a film director on top of that, and a debut. So yeah, that was finished film, and a film that we fell in love with, and a team, and yeah, came at that stage with that. And then La Gradiva, we've been working on since script stage. Marine Atlan was someone who kind of had been on our radar. She's a DP in France. Really highly regarded, and we don't do a lot of debuts, but she was one of those directors we knew we wanted to work with, and had that sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Madame, this was brought to us by the producer of Anatomy of a Fall, Marie-Ange Luciani. A great pitch and a great story, and based on a true story. And yeah, just the director really impressed, and the script and the pitch, and yeah, that was script stage as well.
Very cool. Well, we're obviously very excited to see all these films, as is everyone going into Cannes. Do you? I mean, what kind of goals or ambitions do you set going into the festival, or do you sort of set any kind of goals in that regard? I mean, obviously, selling the projects is obviously a key ambition, but do you go in sort of thinking, oh, this one has a chance at the Palme d'Or, or this one, maybe this could, do you sort of have different ambitions in terms of where you think films might play particularly well? Or is it just too impossible to kind of, predict that?
No, we do. We do have. I think from having, been lucky to have enough to have, quite a few films over the last number of years, and going way back, the company's been around for 50 years, but particularly in the last number of years that have really worked well. It kind of start to give you a little bit of a sense of which sort of films are going to appeal more to press, also to distributors in certain territories, and let's say the kind of films that might have more of an awards profile than others. But obviously that's not the only focus. Looking at that, that's kind of one sort of path for some certain kinds of films. Um, so yeah, you do start to have an idea, but there's surprises all the time, and that's what's so great about the business that we work in. I think that that's the case for everybody. Um, yes, yeah, your job to an extent is to sort of be able to meander through potential surprises and still be open to them and ready to to roll with them and to experience them and live them. But yeah, to get a sense of how things how things can play differently.
As well as your festival selections, of course, you're going to be extremely busy pulling together your future projects. Your slate for the market. I mean, a few big things have been announced previously in the last few months, but what have you announced most recently, and how many projects do you think you'll have in time for this year's marché to kind of introduce to buyers or be speaking to buyers about?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have, in terms of films that have just started to shoot or almost done. Todd Haynes is strapped on De Noche, with Pedro Pascal. Um, they were shooting in Mexico, so that will be ready for next year, and that is one where we're continuing discussions with buyers in Cannes, following commencing with that in Berlin. Um, Likewise, Justine Trier's Fonda, which has started shooting as well. And there was some additions to the cast announced a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, following sort of the sales launch in Berlin. Um, those are the keys that have just kind of started shooting. Then we have some projects that were just about hopefully finalized and we'll be able to announce. Um, so nothing that I can speak of right now.
Can you let us know whether these are English language projects? Because that's become a big sort of, key area of focus for you in recent years, hasn't it?
Yeah, they're all in English language.
And how does the market feel to you these days? I mean, clearly you're a leading company in the space, but the sort of the the conversations that have came out of the pandemic and probably still linger a little bit is that the market's really tough. But you are a company that's really forged such a successful path. So I guess you have a very different perspective. I mean, what is your take on maybe what buyers need these days, and what do they ask you for in terms of the projects that you create? Or do you just say it's about our taste and it's about what we believe in, and that's therefore going to translate to what the buyers will want to buy?
Well, yeah, I guess I would say first it's about our taste and what we believe in. Don't know if it's going to translate, but we do try to think through things and try to think about that second step. But I think basically that's just to say that first and foremost it's what we feel most passionate about in terms of director, in terms of point of view, in terms of many things thematically, how someone's looking at a story, what they're saying. So it's really you sort of have to function on love and passion, and so it's basically what we fall in love with the most. Um, and then of course in terms of what needs to be done for the path for this film, then we have to be looking at the other side and how this is going to translate. So yeah. then we're obviously looking at what we think people are looking for. And I guess to go through that, I mean, I don't know, our sort of feelings on that is, and what we're hearing, from buyers is just kind of the best films, really good projects. Yeah, great filmmakers, sort of on top of their form. And yeah, that sort of tends to be more sort of the thing. Of course, then you have to look at, how difficult is the subject potentially, how demanding of an audience might be in terms of sort of filmmaking style, and sort of navigate that a little bit. And then there's factors like sort of uniqueness and, pitch, and, is this something that's got a really, obvious kind of marketing hook for distributors? But, those are, that obvious marketing hook is sort of an additional thing. You can have films without that are just excellent films that can still break through. But yeah, there are sort of, elements, let's say, of things that can make things more difficult, and elements that can make things easier. So yeah, it's about kind of balancing those up a bit as well.
Do you feel like filmmakers have had to raise their game in recent years? I mean, I feel like, you look at sort of projects like, maybe Sentimental Value, Joachim Trier's project, and Cleberment on Sophia, and they just really tapped into into an audience zeitgeist that was connected them in a way perhaps that their previous projects didn't do quite as strongly. I mean, Worst Person in the World obviously did for Joachim as well, but Sentimental Value was almost like the next step along in his filmmaker evolution. So do you feel like that's kind of something that is happening more now with these kind of auteur filmmakers? They're really, or what, what's your sort of take on the maybe the kind of, I guess, how filmmakers are sort of announcing themselves in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two things there. I think with Kleber and and Joachim Trier, you have two directors who have always made great films, and who are just getting better and better and better, and yeah, made two excellent films, both of them, and yeah, and managed to really speak to the moment. And to completely tap into something. So I think that's that's accumulation of experience. And I don't know, like Hitchcock made 100 movies or something, and how many do we know and are great? There's like 10 or 12. So there's definitely something there when you're looking at Chabrol made tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. There's lots like that. So I think it's there's something to be said for experience in a huge way. That said, it's an expensive medium, and yeah, I do feel like there's definitely pressure on filmmakers to up their game, because I think it is tougher. I think it is tougher films that have sort of more obvious weak points than before. I think that the market, you could get through with films that had some sort of, let's say, fragile areas that weren't quite there yet with the scripts, and then that ends up kind of showing in the film itself, and kind of can't be worked around. So I think there is a lot of pressure, and I think that they do need support in a way to help them bring forward the best possible work, especially given that the market is definitely more challenging. I think we think that it's there for the best kind of films. And I mean, we can talk about that a bit more later, but yeah, it's definitely challenging when there's more kind of obvious weaker spots, especially if you start to combine that with some of those potential, some of the some areas that are some of those elements that can be a little bit more difficult to market. Traditionally, sort of, an all, younger cast, all teenage cast can be a little bit difficult unless you're really tapping into like, a sort of a teenage Gen Z audience, things like that.
There's been I guess what some people call the development of this kind of quote unquote event art house space. I don't know if you're a sort of fan of that term, but it's kind of quite an interesting one to sort of really, maybe help define, the fact that these films seem to be getting a lot more attention, partly driven by the growth of the international membership of the Academy, which means that a lot more attention is put onto international features, and therefore it gives them a higher profile. But it's definitely a growth area. It's an area that your company has been really active and probably driving in a lot of ways, and and probably in collaboration with Neon and Mubi. So how do you see the evolution of that space, and do you think there's still more potential to even grow it further?
Yeah, this is kind of the first time I'm hearing the term, or I'd heard it, but I hadn't really registered. So it's a little bit, I hadn't really thought about the term in itself, but I think I understand what you mean. Um, I think also, I mean, it's something that we've been doing for a long time anyway. These kinds of, the best of sort of international auteur cinema is sort of what MK2 is sort of, based on. It was always a company, based in France and that did French films, but also a lot of international films. If it was for distribution in France or just international, like a lot more than a lot of other French companies. So that's kind of always been very much sort of part of MK2 DNA. Um, but yeah, the last sort of number of years, what's been happening with international films potential growing. I guess we'll have to look at a study in terms of comparing box office. I mean, it's not entirely new, but I think that especially this year there was a particular sort of concentration of hits. But it feels like it's something that's really been growing since the last 6-7 years. Like around 2018, 19, it kind of started, and then Parasite, I think, really sort of changed a lot of things. And it's great to see because there are films that could be a little bit more challenging in the US market, for example, just because of the language barrier. And then that barrier, you just feel it coming down more and more, and sort of the cream rising to the crop more and more as well, in terms of just the strongest films kind of coming through. Um, in the award season in the US. And I mean, that's not, the only sort of measure of success of these films. It's, it's international, it's international box office as well. But yeah, it's really great seeing that kind of those sort of breakthroughs within the US market in terms of sort of, what things can do box office wise. And sometimes for certain films, depending on their release schedules, that is translating over into, international territories more and more. And I think it's also, linked as well to membership.
You mentioned a bit earlier the sort of the multi-year financing partnership with IPR VC, and that Marie Kreuzer's Gentle Monster, I think, is the first project that has benefited from that new relationship. I mean, what has that partnership allowed you to do, and that you maybe were less able to do before? I mean, is it just basically being able to put a lot more of the money up front, or maybe board higher level budget projects? What's the sort of the big benefits of that relationship?
Yeah, it's been great working with them. They've been excellent partners. And yeah, it has allowed us to expand our risk. For sure. And to be involved in certain kinds of films that would have been a more sort of a financing structure that we wouldn't necessarily have been in so much before, which is, more the equity financing structure. So yeah, it's definitely opened up, certain kinds of projects.
Is it like an individual per project availability of sort of funds, or is it, because it's not necessarily the Mk2 slate, is it? It's more that you just use it for individual projects. Is that right?
Yeah, it's individual projects. They're not across every single one of our films. Yeah, we kind of work together on determining which are the ones that feel the most appropriate across the slate.
Okay. Are there any other ones apart from Gentle Monster that have benefited from the partnership so far?
Todd Haynes' film De Noche, um, Fonda, Justin Trier. Yeah, I think those are the ones announced so far. Oh, Michael Cera's film, Love Is Not the Answer. That's announced as well. Another project that'll be new in our lineup, which we'd announced quietly previously in the press, and that will be shooting towards the end of the summer, which is also part of our fund, and it's a European project in the Georgian language, a majority, and it's Camo, The Revolution According to Camo, directed by Cornel Mandrusco, produced by Mike Goodridge and Good Chaos, and that's yeah. That will be in our lineup, and it's shooting soon, and we'll be having discussions with buyers in Cannes on that one.
So as you said to Screen in an interview last year that Mk2 likes to be in a position now to offer projects the entirety of a package, production, financing, sales. Is that really kind of what your preference these days, to be involved on production financing side as well as sales, or is it less likely you would take on projects just for sales these days?
No, it's not necessarily likely we'd take something on just for sales. It really depends on the needs of each individual film. So it's really what kind of makes us, what we fall in love with the most, what we're most passionate about and excited about and feel like we can see a path for. And um, then the needs of the particular film.
Yeah, got you. Okay. But you must be pitched hundreds of projects every year to build your slate of which I think is about 15 to 20 that that you kind of keep it pretty tight and curated, right? I mean, a lot of this obviously come through existing relationships. You mentioned earlier about filmmakers that you really wanted to work with, who have films in this year's Cannes lineup. But it's still a lot to navigate. So I just wonder, how do you approach that as a team in terms of finding those great projects? What's the kind of when you have dozens coming at you, how do you sort of make the call on which ones that are the right ones to back?
Yeah, it's a challenge every day because it is a big volume, and we're incredibly lucky to be receiving so many projects to look at. But it is quite a thing. Yeah, absolutely quite a thing to manage. So yeah, we have a big team. We also tend to have people on the acquisitions teams who have done or still do sales. So they're really looking at something in terms of the project itself, and then the market aspect at the same time. So I think that that's maybe one sort of unique element in terms of our team, and it means that the team is people doing multiple things, and so it's a little bit larger. Um, but yeah, that's a constant challenge to stay on top of that. And then of course we do have our lists of things we've heard about, and there's constant meetings and directors that we proceed in terms of directors that we want to work with, and then there's some producers who we absolutely love working with or would love to because they've done great films that we feel like are sort of aligned in terms of taste or that we love. So yeah, it's a combination, but it's a constant. Maybe it's one of the most intense departments and teams.
I feel like that directors be falling over themselves to work with Mk2, given your reputation, and yet there must be some kind of, is there a competition to basically win some of these projects? I'm just thinking about a sort of an interview that Kleber Mendonça Filho did recently, where he mentioned that it was a lunch in Cannes in 2023 that convinced him and his producer that you were the right partners for The Secret Agent. Is that a big part of it then? Do you have to kind of persuade or just talk to directors about what your vision or strategy is for the film ahead of time a lot?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's hopefully less persuasion and just kind of getting to know each other, sharing enthusiasm for particular people's works, directors' works, and talking about how we see a project and how we feel about it. I think it's and how we work, of course, and getting to know each other. Um, but yeah, that's something we're constantly on.
I mean, what when you lose a project? I mean, what is it about? What can be the deciding factor in that situation?
Definitely, I think we learn from things. I think two things. Yes, maybe we might have gone about something in the right way and in the wrong, not in the most ideal way in terms of what we could do for what there was particular needs of the film, and what maybe what maybe production producers can be used to. I think there's that, and sometimes it's just things are the budget levels are just there's we might see the potential on a different level to what someone else is potentially willing to do. So I think that I like to say that things we lose out on are because they're at the wrong budget level, but and I think there's a bit of that for sure. Um, especially especially now when the challenges are so intense on budgets in terms of inflation and prices going up, but potential box office not necessarily always be going up across the board for everything.
Yeah, yeah. How much of your time in Cannes will be spent, with these filmmaker meetings where you're talking about upcoming projects that you might get involved with versus, you actually doing the sales talks with? I mean, I suppose, you have obviously a team who's doing that as well, but I mean, where do you split your time really? What's your priorities during the festival?
I'd say it's about 50-50. I mean, there's the sales team that are purely selling, and then those of us who are across sort of sales and acquisitions in my case, and Emmanuel, who's head of acquisitions, yeah, I'd say it's about 50-50, and the buyer meetings tend to be, in the first few days, and then yeah, producers and then filmmakers in the next few days.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier one of the projects that you're going to be talking to people a lot about is Fonda. So what can you tell us about that at this stage? I mean, obviously you mentioned that some exciting cast has been announced. They're shooting now. Uh, I imagine we're going to see this in Cannes 2027 up against Ruben Östlund's The Entertainment System is Down. But I mean, that's obviously looking way, way far ahead. What was the kind of most exciting thing about this project, apart from it being basically Justine Triet's follow-up to Anatomy of a Fall, which of course you had amazing success with, when that came out?
Yeah, that's the main thing. In addition, of course, to falling in love with the script and thinking that she's just doing something so incredibly original again, still like very much in the vein of what she does. But it's the third time working with her now, and it's always been incredible collaborating with her. So she was definitely one of those people that you absolutely want to continue with, and yeah, then falling in love basically with her, with her with this, with this story, with this setting, with these themes, with how she's seen this cast as well, and yeah.
Another project you mentioned, of course, is De Noche, Todd Haynes' film, which has Pedro Pascal starring in it. And of course, as everyone remembers from the headlines, Joaquin Phoenix at one point was going to star and dropped out literally right before it was about to start shooting. Very painful situation for everyone. You were obviously, in the thick of that process. I mean, how did you navigate what was that very tricky situation to make sure that the project then eventually was able to get made? What was that kind of situation like to navigate, basically?
Yeah, that was tough for sure. That was really, really hard. And I think first and foremost on Todd Haynes. But yeah, a tough situation for everybody. And then it was Killer that came back to us. It was one of those where in the back of your mind you're like, this can't possibly be never happening. There's got to be some way one day. Like you kind of sort of keep some hope there somewhere someday. And then it was Killer who came back to us. And yeah, it's one of those, as soon as someone brings it up again, you're like, yes, of course, absolutely. You want to be there, you want to do it. And then they came to us about Pedro Pascal being ready to step in, which we thought was unbelievable and like kind of the most thrilling, casting for this film in a way that you could think of. So yeah, we were there to help figure it out basically from the beginning.
And you did. You may, 'cause it's being made now, right? So it will be a project that, Todd's able to get out into the world, which is very exciting. There's another project on your slate, which I'm quite interested to know because we've been hearing about it for quite a long time. That's the Zellner Brothers Alpha Gang. What stage is that at, and where do you think we might see that will we see that this year, hopefully?
Yes, I hope this year. This is in post production. They're still working on the edits, and yeah, hopefully we're going to be ready to show that to fall festivals. Really exciting cast. We showed a really very cool promo for that. That was done in a very early stage, minus all those VFX and everything that we're looking forward to seeing soon. Yeah, really excited about that one.
Cool. And is Neon a partner on any of these three projects? Because I know they're a partner that you work with quite regularly. Are they kind of partners on any of those three films or any of the films that you have coming in Cannes this year? Because I think they were on quite a few of the ones from last year, weren't they? Sentimental Value, Secret Agent.
Secret Agent, it was sold in Cannes.
Yeah.
Sentimental Value, it was the second time that they were working with Joachim as well. So they were on board Sentimental Value before, but this year, no. Neon's not on anything currently.
Regular partner though, aren't they? I mean, how would you define your relationship? It's not a first look relationship, but I think you sort of, said that in our interview last year, but it's obviously a very kind of close and collaborative relationship. So they're great partners for you, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky to get off to an incredible start with Portrait of a Lady on Fire in 2019, 2020. And so yeah, I've been through a lot in terms of projects and highs and lows. Lots of highs, but a few lows as well. But everything turned out really well. I just
Yeah.
there were a few hurdles that we went through together for sure. Yeah, I just feel like the tastes align so completely. There are others, of course, where that is the case. I just think there's a combination of the sort of the taste alignments of having the past experience and the trust, and of the ambition that they have.
What about the fun side of Cannes? Are you able to have fun in Cannes? I mean, I think you obviously have a lot of film projects, so a lot of those films will have parties. I mean, do you enjoy going to the parties that are attached to your films? What's been your favorite kind of party experience that you've had uh, in Cannes?
Um, I think one that comes to mind because I felt incredibly lucky because it was the Cannes in July. And lucky like that we're all lucky because it was the Cannes in July after COVID, and it was the Critics Week party that Joachim Trier was DJing at. That was outside in an incredible chateau, sort of looking over Cannes, and all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, like we're just kind of out of COVID and we're all out here dancing, and it's Joachim Trier who's DJing, and we're all, yeah. And there weren't too many of us because I guess the capacity was less, even though we were all outside. But that's definitely one moment that sticks to mind. And we were supposed to in the world premiering that year, a few days later. So yeah, that's one particular moment of yeah, very much kind of feeling the collective luck and the team from that film all being there.
When you go to your own parties for your films, is it a little bit like just kind of part of the job, a little bit worky? Kind of, are you staying out late?
It can happen, but they do kind of get worky. They do get quite worky. They can get intense with, distributors popping by and, wanting to do things right now. And, you try to be like, let's just have fun and enjoy the party together. So we can talk about this later, but doesn't always work. So you do have to be sort of, yeah, courting different buyers and different competitors sometimes in the same party. And, you might need some help to, pull in some help to, be able to manage to do that. Yeah, they can get a little bit intense. But fun, fun, intense at the same time. But there's nothing like a party for a film that's gone down really well, and you can really feel the difference in who's coming, but just generally in the vibe in the room. And something in particular I remember with Portrait of a Lady on Fire, just going, wow. This vibe, this party is really pretty incredible. Yeah, so exciting moments that we're lucky to live, and yeah, you can't necessarily completely kind of let go and give into it though.
Absolutely. And do you have any favorite kind of off the beaten track restaurants or places that you go to unwind during Cannes, or is it all just work, work, work?
There's somewhere that I love to go and haven't been in years, and every year I'm like, I'm going, and then you get torn between your films are playing late, or you want to see a few films because you haven't seen anything by the time. We tend to stay right to the end, or have the last number of years planned to stay until the Sunday. But yeah, it's the island, Leronas. Going across the island, it's been a number of years. It has to happen again soon, but yeah, that's a pretty incredible experience if you ever have time. There's a little restaurant there. I think it's maybe a little bit less a little restaurant now, become a bit more of a stopover point. But that is a really great secret place to get away to and have a swim on the other side.
Oh, fantastic. So you do get to swim. You get to swim in Cannes occasionally.
I try to once a year. Ideally, it would be on the island, but that's kind of a half day trip or more. So between yeah. So not always that, but I try to at least in some shape or form, and sometimes yeah. And I try to do towards the ends, sort of like swim meetings
Swim meetings, brilliant.
with certain producers that I'm close to, or yeah, or distributors that I'm close to. Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, well, I hope you get lots of swim meetings this year, Fionnuala, and I hope you get out to the island as well. I think that'll be a sign of a very successful can. So, look, really great to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time this close to the festival. I know how busy you are, so we really appreciate you joining the Screen Podcast today. And good luck with all of the projects in the lineup and also on the sales slate. We look forward to hearing how they all go down.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Fionnuala. Wow, I'm surprised that either one of them had time to do such an in-depth interview on the eve of Cannes, but I'm glad they did. Thanks to everyone tuning in to the Screen Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and do tune in to our Cannes Daily episode starting on May 12th. Please do subscribe, rate us, follow us wherever you get your pods. Thanks to the whole team at Screen who makes this podcast possible, especially our web editor, Orlando Parfit. Do join us again starting May 12th for that full Cannes coverage. And my last tip, pack comfortable shoes. I know I will. See you in Cannes.